To get started with overweight fines, you're going to go to the mill section, and you're going to go to the mill that is going to be charging you the overweight fine. Click on the mill. You'll see a tab up here called overweight fines. And here's where we're going to create a rule set to define how these overweight fines should be calculated. First thing you're going to do is set a max allowable weight. This is sort of the base for all the overweight fines amounts that they get charged over. So you want to here if 90,000 is the max allowable weight, and everything over that is going to get charged. That's the way you would enter that in. You have the ability to enter in tons or pounds. I think most mills are going to be entering this number in pounds because it's usually the way the state regulates the overweight amounts. Here you have a couple different ways to calculate the fees. A flat fee is just going to be whatever fee you plug in here for that tier, and you can set up different buckets. So if it's like just a little overweight, it can be a certain flat amount, or if it's a lot overweight, it can be a higher amount. We've seen most go with a per ton over the max allowable weight. So this is a little confusing, but this is the way we've seen most mills do it. Your overweight amount is going to be in pounds, but then that's going to get converted to tons, and then there's a per ton charge over that max allowable weight. Here you get to choose what account you want these transactions to generate these overweight fines with. So you have a choice here. You can kind of play around with different scenarios and look at your profit and loss and see what makes the most sense for you. You could use just, for example, most of the time you're going to use timber sales for your sales to the mill. And if you want to just reduce that with a fine amount, then that's what you would use here. So we'll use that for this example. But you could use an expense account as well. And so this is good enough to just create the overweight fine. But most of the time you're going to pass that on to kind of the person responsible, either your logger or your trucker. And you can choose that here. And then if you choose this, then it's going to request that you also choose an account for your logger and trucker. And you'll want to choose, you can only choose an expense account for logger or trucker because we're only putting expenses on statements. So you'll need to choose an expense. And normally you're going to be charging, for example, your logging company, the logging expense. So this would enter in a negative logging expense, so it will reduce the amount that the logger is getting. Now you can put expenses on reconciliations. So you could potentially use a logging expense here as well. And then those two will really just wash each other out. So if the fine is $25, it's going to reduce the reconciliation by $25, and it's going to reduce the statement by $25. But we'll go back to our timber sales here for this one. And you could potentially just create a whole separate expense account for overweight fines. That's probably what we recommend doing so that you can track all of that in one account. And that would make it pretty convenient, especially if you're passing it along in the expense category. Okay, so once you get those settings finished, now you got to create tiers. So here you're going to want to put like the amount. So if it starts right off the bat at 90,000 in 1 pound, you would start there. And then let's say this goes to 95,000. And so this is, since we chose per ton over max allowable weight, let's say it's going to be $10 per ton over the max allowable weight. So if it's 4,000 pounds over, that's 2 tons. 2 times 10 will be 20, so it'll be a $20 overweight fine. And then you can continue adding as many tiers as you need. You do need to they can't overlap, so make sure you put at least 1 pound over here. And then we would put maybe up to 100,000 pounds. Maybe that rate now increases to $15. And then let's say that we go from 100,000. We just want this to go to infinity, and let's say that is $18. We can create that. So now we have our tiers here, and everything is saved. So let's go see how it works. We'll go create a load under our job. So let's put 90,000 just to test. So this should not trigger overweight fine because it's at the max allowable weight, so 90,000 or below. Okay, I just have 2 transactions set up for this product. I have a income and then a logging expense, just to keep it simple. So now we'll go edit this, and let's put it over weight. So it's now 90,100. And if we look, we'll see that it generated 2 additional transactions. And we have 1 transaction for international paper. This is our timber sales. We reduced the amount, and it was just a small amount because we were only just 100 pounds, which is just a fraction of a ton. So not very much there, but you see the offset that we did here. Now let's increase this just so we can see a little bit more. Let's try, let's see, how about 98,000? That should be, what's that, 4 tons. And then our so 95 to 100 is 15 over, so 15 times 4 is 60. So we'd expect that to be $60, correct? There we go. So we reduced our sales by 60, and we reduced our logging expense by 60. Now let's just carry this on through and make sure this shows up how we want it to on our statements and our reconciliations. So let's create a statement with this ticket. There's our statement. So we can see now that the logger earned $600 less the 60, and so they're now due only $540. And then if we go to our reconciliation and we generate a new one, and we find our ticket here, we can see the 2 transactions. So we originally were owed a gross amount of $1,200 from the mill, but then we had it reduced by 60 because of the overweight fine. So now we're at 1140 net. And let's do one more thing. Let's go to our reports and forms, and we'll go to a profit and loss report, and let's just look at this whole job. Okay, so we can see our total timber sales for this job is 1140, the 1200 minus the 60, and then our logging expense is just showing the net there. Remember, it was 600 minus the 60 is 540, and so our profit is 600. And just one more thing to note, if we go back to the ticket, we should see that our profit stayed the same here, $600, because it's 1200 minus the 600. These two are a wash, and that is also reflected here as well. Please give this a try and let us know if you have any questions.